I'm Benjamin Hall, and I'm searching for heroes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today. Our guest is another incredible person. He's called General Noam Tibon. He's a retired Israeli general, and he's going to be talking to me about October the 7th and what happened that day. Early that morning, he received a message from his son who lived in a kibbutz saying that they were under attack. And Noam picked up his pistol and he drove straight down, just telling his family that he was coming to save them. And he spent hours battling against Hamas, saving Israeli soldiers, working his way down. And he talks to me today both about what it was like on that day, terrible things he saw, the decisions he had to make. But he talks to me also about resilience, leadership, his mission, working and fighting alongside his brothers in the Israeli army. And it is a remarkable story of heroism from that terrible day on October 7th. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope you enjoy it. If it's okay, I'd like to start talking first of all about what happened on October the 7th. And one of the reasons I think is that maybe many people around the world are perhaps forgetting what started everything, how this first began. Do you feel that's the case? Do you think that some people are forgetting what happened that day?
I think that it is very important to tell the truth, that basically the Hamas attacked Israel on a brutal attack, which I never saw in my lifetime. And, they came to kill, to slaughter, to rape. They didn't have any mercy on kids, women, old people. And, it was a battle for life. And I think that it is very important that, especially in the United States, but also all over the world, people will remember who started this war and who was brutal. And right now, a year after, in many cases, people said, no, they blame Israel. And that's why I'm so happy that, we are talking about what happened on that day and who started this war.
What do you think has changed in Israel? I mean, would you agree that something has perhaps changed forever, that this will leave a change in Israel?
I think that what really happened in Israel on that day, October 7, is the biggest failure in the history of Israel. On that day, when I drove to Nahal Oz on the Gazan border to rescue my family and the entire kibbutz, the whole area was occupied by Hamas. And there were no state of Israel and no IDF. This was my feeling. And basically it never happened before in all the history of the state of Israel. Nobody ever occupied territory inside Israel and for hours. And this is something which we need to investigate. The IDF collapse. And basically this is something which, people in Israel, they are, it's daily issue, war, terror attack, but they always trusted the IDF. And this was broken on that day. People feel they are not secure in Israel, and this is something which we need to fix, because on that day, on October 7, we lost more Jews than any other day since the Holocaust. And Israel is supposed to be the shelter for the Jewish people. And that's why Israel changed forever. And that's why on October 8 in the morning, I said that everyone that is responsible to this failure need to take responsibility and go away. And I mean all the leadership of the IDF, include the chief of staff, all the leadership of the intelligence, and all the Israeli government. Number one that need to take responsibility and go away is Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
And I want to come to that in a little bit as well. But if I take you back to the morning of October 7th, and I know that it was about 7:15 that you first got, I think you'd been swimming in the Mediterranean. You got back into your car and you started to see these messages coming through from your son, Amir. What did you know at that point that this was a different kind of attack?
On that day, I used all my knowledge and experience for many years in the military, in special forces, combat all my life, all my values as a human being, and all my instincts. And basically, my wife and I were swimming at the Mediterranean. We live in Tel Aviv, 6:30 in the morning. We heard the sirens. And basically, we said, okay, another rockets, and we continued to swim. On 7:15 in the morning, when we got up, basically, I opened my cellular phone and there was a text message from my son Amir. Dad, there are terrorists in the neighborhood near my house. From that point, I was on a mission to rescue my family. And basically, I called him, we can still talk, and I gave him a very direct orders. No feelings, no nothing, orders. Locked all the windows, locked all the doors, get into the safe room, lock the door from inside, be quiet. I'm sending the IDF. And this was a very clear orders what to do. And then we were rushing home. And this was a decision point, because usually I served so many years in the military, I supposed to trust the IDF. But something in my heart told me, you need to go. And, it's an instinct of father, who are protecting his family. Immediately I changed. I took my pistol, which is what I have here in Israel in license. And then my wife basically told me, Noam, let me drive for you. You will need both hands. And this was a very smart idea because, and we were speeding south. And I tried to call everyone who I know in the IDF. I retired 10 years ago, so I still know the leadership. Nobody responds. And basically, from Ashkelon, which is, it's inside Israel, we were the only vehicle on the road. We were totally alone. And we met the war near the gas station of kibbutz Niram. And this was another decision, because all the news from Amir was very bad. And, the second text, he said, Dad, I think there is a terrorist inside the house. And basically I said, the same orders, be quiet, lock the door. And he was not, he was not mistaken. There were a huge battle on his porch between.
And yet there was no panic. I mean, I've heard that neither you nor Amir were panicking at that point. And I wonder, that's not necessarily true for every family. What is it about you, your family? What do you have taught Amir that he was able to stay totally in control and follow these orders?
I think Amir understood, and he trusted me that I'm going to do whatever I can to help him. And I think this is what he basically teaching his two very little daughters, Galia, 3.5 years old, and Carmel, less than 2 years old. He gave them confidence that they are secure in this terrible situation. He and his wife Miri were calm, were quiet, and the girls were okay. They didn't cry. They were really heroes, those two young girls. And basically, what happened, we saw a battle, just like in the movie, between a police car and one of the Hamas pickups, where on the main, in the middle of the road. And we thought what to do. We thought, we have a Jeep, we have a good vehicle, so we thought maybe we go to the field. And then in seconds, a young couple jumped into the road. They were, they escaped from the festival. And, it's a matter of seconds that we open the door, we shout to them, come in, because otherwise they were killed there. And immediately we decided that we are going to rescue their life. Yes, it's going to take time.
Yeah, that's an interesting decision, because was that the first time, you must have had to think for a second, either I rescue these two and that's going to delay me getting to the kibbutz. Did you have to weigh up that decision, or was it a natural decision?
It was a natural decision, because this is my values. You don't leave anyone behind you. And I understood if I'm going to leave them there is a good chance that they are going to die. So they jump on our car. My wife and I didn't even speak about this decision. I just told her, Gali, please do a U-turn. And we took them back, about 20, 30 minutes to rescue their life. And then the second decision, it was, we took another road, and then we were on a police checkpoint. And they didn't let us go to kibbutz Nahal Oz because they said it's a war zone and nobody allowed. And, I begged, my wife cried, nobody to talk to. And then, one of the policemen said something which rang my bell and changed my whole attitude, which I understood this is a different situation. He said, Noam, don't worry. The military is taking care of the situation. And, on that point, I was already 2 hours in this region. I didn't saw even one soldier. My son sent me a text, Dad, where is the military? And I understood, enough. I'm on my own. I'm going to break any rule that usually I'm a regular guy which obey all the rules of the traffic and everything. And basically we jump into the car. We bypass this police checkpoint in the fields. And there were another police checkpoint. And we decided that we are rushing through. We opened the windows and we shouted, we are Israelis, don't shoot, because we knew if they will stop us, maybe we cannot go to Nahal Oz. And, this is something which is, instincts, which I understood. If I will stop there, maybe I will not fulfill my mission and I will not rescue my family. And, you become a warrior on that moment, and, you decide, just like in a mission, you need to do what you need to do to fulfill your mission.
Why do you have that mindset? How do you have such an incredible sense of mission and values? Because not many other people did what you did and just drove straight towards Hamas terrorists. Why do you have that?
This is something which is truth all over the world. And maybe I have a little bit more experience from my military background. Everybody is afraid in such a catastrophe. Everybody is afraid to lose his life or to lose the life of his family or friends or whatever. Usually what fear is doing, you're frozen. People sit waving at the TV, lock themselves at home. Some of them don't want to hear the news, but they are frozen. And the most important issue when you are in a terrible situation where everything is unclear and there is a good, a big fear in your heart, take an action. Don't freeze. This is very important, and it's truth all over the world in such a situation. And this is basically what I did. I took an action, and I was following my action to rescue my family. And this helped me. And, many people in Israel on that day, basically, they were frozen at their homes. And that's why the situation was so catastrophe.
Do you think that has changed with the new generation? Do you think that if you look at the younger generations or people who haven't experienced such difficulties as past generations have, that we have a weaker society than we used to?
I don't think so, because I see this, TikTok generation, in uniform, and I see a year after what the IDF did, how they crashed Hamas in Gaza and how they crashed Hezbollah in Lebanon. They are brave people. But on that day, people, because this was something totally new, like the attack on the Twin Towers in New York, where America were shocked because this is something which we never thought that it can happen in our lifetime. Such an attack where thousands of Hamas troops occupied, killed, raped, we never thought that this can happen in our borders. And on that moment, you really need to be very focused, otherwise you are losing it.
More of our conversation right after this. It's interesting because, you would imagine that on October 7th or 9/11, they really brought a country together under attack. And yet I listened to you talk and it brought the country together. But it's also, and listening to what you said at the beginning, it's also torn the country apart. And you're saying it has shown so many issues that need to be solved. Do you feel that it's done both, that it's brought the people together, but it's created big divides within the politics?
Basically, the main issue about leadership, that this is something which you cannot teach in school. Leadership is either something that you have or you don't have. The same issue with courage. You cannot teach it. Either you have it in the face of dangerous or you don't have it. And basically, on that day, I was not alone. There were other brave people in Israel, but the whole system of the IDF collapsed. The generals didn't give the right orders. The troops were waiting to get an order, and that's why, nothing functioned. And on that terrible situation, only few people decided that are taking their responsibility and go and rescue.
Why was the system not ready to move? What went wrong? When did it go wrong?
I think, this is something which we need a formal investigation, because we have a very good orders what to do in such a situation. Somehow nothing happened, nothing worked. The forces came very late. They were not organized. And more than all, they didn't understood the situation. Then there are hostages, that there are people locking in their house, raped, murdered, and they waited for orders. And this is something which we need to investigate. 10 years before October 7, what happened to us? And to investigate all the levels, the military, the intelligence, and of course, the government. And basically, the same issue was with, Benjamin Netanyahu on that day disappeared. Secretary of Defense, Yoav Gallant, disappeared. All of them ran into the bunkers and they disappeared. And the same with the chief of staff. And what I thought, the main issue when you go into a bunker, you don't see the real picture. Mm-hmm. And basically the best picture on that day was on the TV channels, because they started to see movies of the Hamas, pickups in Sderot, massacre, killed. And people who saw that on TV immediately understood that we are in a different situation. But on those who need to take responsibility and decisions, they didn't function, and we have to investigate. And by the way, I believe all of them need to take responsibility and go away.
Mm. You just said about courage, that you either have it or you don't have it. You are born with it or you are not born with it. And I find that really interesting. You don't think that your upbringing, your parents, the way you're brought up can give you courage? You think that it is something you either have or do not have from birth?
I don't know exactly, because usually what happened in military units, that, you do it a lot for your friends and peers. Mm. And that's why you run into the fire, because you feel ashamed that they will see that you are afraid. On that day, basically, I was most of the time alone or with my wife or with with troops that I met on that road. And I think the main lesson, and let me tell you something, if there will be another incident like this in Israel or maybe in the world, everyone who heard my story, and I think there are millions all over the world, they will take my pistol and they will go to protect their family. They will not hesitate and they will not be afraid, because this is the instinct of a father, of a grandfather, to protect your family.
And I know, first of all, you rescued the two people who had left the festival, but then, I mean, I think you went on both to see numerous people who had been blown up inside a shelter. You then saw a soldier who had been shot in the stomach, and again, that was a decision where you had to stop.
Yeah.
You took him, you saved him, is that right? And you evacuated him as well?
Yeah, this I think this was the toughest decision on that day. 1 kilometer before Nahal Oz, when it was already, I left home 7:30 in the morning. It was already around noon, and a vehicle of 5 troops from Maglan unit, one of the elite units, went into an ambush by the Hamas. Hamas created ambushes all over the roads and basically killed many people in their cars. And, they were fighting for their life. And I came to there with basically, one soldier who escorted me, a brave soldier by the name of Avi, and then another 5 paratroopers, young officers. And we saw them and we jumped. And, on that moment, we were under very heavy fire. I shot one bullet with my pistol, and I understood this is useless because they use RPG, they use Kalashnikov. And then, I saw 3 soldiers lying on my right-hand side. I grabbed them, and they were all dead. Chen Buchis, the deputy of Maglan unit from Ashdod, Yiftach Yabetz, from another officer from Ramat HaSharon, and Afik Rosenthal from Kfar Menachem. And on this second, I understood that, I'm fighting for my life. I took the helmet and the M16 of Chen Buchis, and I killed 2 terrorists on this battle. When the battle ended, we killed about 8 terrorists there. The road to Nahal Oz was open, and all I wanted is to jump into my vehicle and to continue my drive. And then one of the soldiers shouted, "I am wounded, I am wounded," an officer by the name of Yenidia. He got a bullet in his belly, and he was bleeding. And from my experience, I understood that, the golden hour, if I will not take him to the hospital, he will lose too much blood and he's going to die. And again, on that moment, it's between your values. You don't leave anyone behind you. He was fighting with me. And my heart, go and rescue your family. And again, I took the decision. I threw him and another 2 wounded soldiers. I rushed. I gave the whole vehicle with the wounded people to my wife, who basically took them in this hostile area alone, and she rescued their life. And this was a tough, very tough decision. But then I want to tell you one more thing about friendship. When I gave the vehicle to my wife, Gali, she told me, "Noam, go to Israel." And then I saw another vehicle on this junction, and I went to him, and this was General Israel Ziv. He was my commander when I was in a paratrooper. He was the brigade commander. I was a battalion commander. So we are good friends since then. And I opened the door and I said, "Israel, he has only a pistol, just like myself. Because in Israel, you can have only a pistol under license." I said, "Israel, can you take me to Nahal Oz?" And he said 2 words, "Jump on." And I said, "Israel, it's very dangerous. I'm coming from an ambush. It's all full of terrorists." He said, "Come on." Now, he was not hesitating for a second, and he was willing to rescue his life, to help me in my mission to rescue my family. And, this is friendship. And this is, this is his values. And that's why I'm not alone. There were a lot of brave people in Israel on that day who risked their own life to save other lives.
It's brotherhood as well. You see it in the military that
exactly.
you work with, side by side. What do you talk to him? Have you spoken to him since? I'm wondering and to your wife as well. Like, what are the conversations like now? Do you go back and talk about it, or do you sort of look forward?
We were good friends, and now we are even better. And basically, my wife and I met him, 2 weeks later. And she did only one thing. She went to him, gave him a big hug and thank you, Israel. And, this is what I felt, from the deep of my heart. Thank you, Israel. You really helped me.
Yeah. And you made it finally, over 3 hours later, you made it to the kibbutz. But still, at that point, it was still under attack. And you
basically, we entered the kibbutz, and I was honored to fight with two very good units, young soldiers from Maglan and Sayeret Givati. We didn't enter the kibbutz from the main gate because we were afraid from side bombs. So we took another gate. And basically, until we arrived, there was a huge battle between, from about 300 terrorists and only 15 people in the kibbutz. When we arrived, 2 were already dead, 6 wounded, so they were exhausted. In the kibbutz, we had 15 people that were killed and 7 people that took as hostages. 5 women already released, and 2, Tzachi and Omri, are still in the hand of the Hamas, and we need to bring them back. And basically, I was not the commander there. I didn't have uniform. I didn't have ranks. I have my M16 helmet and my experience. And basically, what I did, I become a mentor for the young troops. And basically, I try to give them my experience. And those brave soldiers basically cleaned the whole kibbutz. They killed more than 30 terrorists in a face-to-face battles. We moved from house to house to house to house. We lost only 1 kibbutz member on this battle. And, around 4 p.m., the great moment of my life, I saw my son's house and the Amir, and the door was locked. And basically, all the houses that I searched until then, when the door was locked, live people. When the door were open, inside our blood and no people or bodies.
When was the last time you'd spoken to Amir? Did you know whether he was alive or not?
Around noon, I got an SMS text, we're in the military. That's it. So, about 4 hours, we were not in contact. And then, only then I told the soldiers, listen, this is my son's house. They were not aware. Let me go first. And I go to the armor window of the safe room. I knock and I said, Amir, it's the Abba. Amir, it's Daddy.
Dad's here.
And then, Galia, my granddaughter, she said what she always said when I'm coming home. Grandpa here, Sababa. And, this is so... But, we were in the middle of the battle. So I said, Amir, open the door. I get into their house. I gave everybody a kiss and a hug, and that's it, And I said, the soldiers, this is your headquarters. And, only at midnight, we evacuated more than 400 live people from the kibbutz. I felt that I finished my mission. And if there is something which I'm so proud of that day, that I didn't leave anyone behind me. The people from the Nova Festival, the wounded soldiers, and all the members of kibbutz Nahal Oz, I rescued all of them on that day.
It's amazing that when you were going into the kibbutz, you didn't tell the soldiers you were with that was your son's house. Did you think that their priority had to be just on killing and defeating the terrorists, rather than saying, I've got to get to that house? You just methodically went following the mission?
I think that the right way to do it was to create a straight line in a way and clean the kibbutz. And you have to do it in a very perfect way, because you don't want that there will be terrorists shooting from your back, because then it can become a very difficult friendly fire incident. And that's why basically, I joined them, and we try to do it in the right way. And frankly, once you are in the kibbutz, every life is important, not only the life of my son and my family. Yeah. And because we did it right, and, all the credit goes to Maglan unit and Sayeret Givat unit, terrific soldiers. Once they understood what they need to do, they did it excellent, and, they killed all the terrorists. And yes, sometimes if you try to do a shortcut in a battle, you can lose everything. The most important issue was to be sure that you kill everybody, and you do it, and you don't stop, just like a machine. You clean, you clean, you clean. You don't stop until you finish it.
Yeah, I think that's true for life as well. If you try and get shortcuts, it's never going to work as well as if you do it properly. You say that many other people are heroes. You talk about the soldiers you were with, but so many people are calling you a hero. Is it strange for people to say that? Do you just think that you were doing your mission, you were doing what you had to do, and everyone keeps telling your story, or are you happy that it's been told?
Let me tell you something. On that day, we lost so many good people. Civilians, families, children, soldiers, female soldiers. Israel is really suffering. I was lucky. My whole family is alive, And there were people who lost all their world on that day. And, I want to tell you something, because it is very, very important. I don't remember much what was in my mind on that. I was very focused on the mission. So, but I remember one thought that, jump once in a while we were going to Nahal Oz. How can I continue my life if I will come and my whole family is dead? I didn't think about them. I think, how can I continue my life? And when you are in a mission, you have to be optimistic all the time and very focused. But, from time to time, I had this thought, what if, not what if I will come late? How can I continue my life?
And you just put that thought, you would have to put that to the side.
Yeah, you have to switch it aside and say, this is their only chance. You are their only chance. You have to win it.
How are your granddaughters, Gali and Carmel? They were both under 4 at the time. Do they remember it? Do they know the significance of what happened that day?
First of all, their life changed. They moved from one house to another since then. I think that because they were young and because their parents protected them, I don't think that they were really affected. But you never know, because, they were so young. So I hope that when they will grow up, they will have no side effects or fears. But, I think older children who understood what's going on and heard all the noises of the machine guns and the crying and the slaughter, you have to take care of them to help them to have a normal life.
Yeah. I've been down to some of the kibbutzes and I've spoken to people there, and there is a mixed feeling about whether people should return to live there. Some people, of course, say, this is our home, we will not be pushed from it, and we want to go back. But others say the tragedy, the memories there makes it impossible to. Where do you stand?
I think that at the end of the day, people will come back. Of course, it's personal, but if the community is strong, this is the whole idea of Zionism, that you work the land until the border, that you live on the border. This is the idealistic society and the main idea of the Zionism. This is the only land of the Jewish people, and this is our land. I really believe that they will be much more sensitive about their security and what the IDF is doing to secure them, and that we will need much more troops on the ground there. And I think at the end of the day, it's very personal. At the end of the day, in some houses, when you lost your wife, your kid, I'm not sure that you can go back and live there. It's complicated, and maybe one of the discussion is maybe to destroy the whole neighborhood and then rebuild another neighborhood in a different area of the kibbutz, that people will not have all the memories of this terrible situation on October 7 in their own houses.
Do you think that while the war continues in Gaza, and while the hostages are still being held, that this, of course, this is not over, the wounds remain open? And how do you look forward right now? How do you look for hope? How do you look for closure or moving on?
I think that this is the number one priority of the war, to bring them home. It's not an easy task, but we will have to pay a huge price for it, but I think we need to do it. And if it will mean that we will end the war in Gaza, I believe we need to end the war and rescue terrorists, because these are our brothers and our sisters. And according to Judaism, all the Jewish people are brothers, so we cannot leave them there. And I think this is a huge failure of the Israeli government, of Benjamin Netanyahu, and the extreme people of Ben Gvir and Smotrich. We basically push him not to do a deal in the past. And this is an open wound, because I think this is the first time, Israel, I grew up on Entebbe story, that wherever, there are people from our people all over the world who need help, we will be there. And now, a few miles from Israel, you have hostages, which we know that they are suffering so much, and we are not doing nothing to help them. And this is something which will be an open wound, and that's why we need to stop everything and bring them home as soon as possible. And maybe right now is the right situation, because, I think Biden and Trump maybe can help to finish it and end the war in Gaza. And, basically to win the war in Gaza, we need, this is what my son Amir told me. In order to win the war in Gaza, he needs to go back home to his kibbutz on the border with all his friends, which means all the hostages, and to feel secure, which means you can go take your kids to the kindergarten, go to work, and come back home as a normal, with no soldiers all over. And this is why we need to replace Hamas in Gaza, Hamas leadership in Gaza.
Can the people of Gaza be really separated from Hamas? Is the ideology so deeply ingrained inside Gaza that is there a way of defeating Hamas, the terrorist, the ideology, while working and living next to Palestinian, Gazan people?
This is a very important question. And of course, it's a difficult answer, but I think all the people in Gaza were happy and supported the attack on October 7, 90%. Now, when Gaza totally destroyed, maybe it will change a little bit. But what we need to do, you cannot take ideology out of the mind and the head of the people, but you can replace the leadership. You can replace the government, that the government will not be ruled by Hamas. It will be ruled by other moderate Palestinians. and maybe troops from Arab countries.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And, you saw America spend years in Iraq and spend years in Afghanistan. You cannot change the people. But the difference here in Israel is that this is on our border. And that's why we need, you cannot just get out.
Yeah.
They will continue to be our neighbors. And that's why I think the whole relationship need to be changed. And yes, if we will see even one sign of hostility in Lebanon or in Gaza, we need to attack immediately. If we will see one sign of tunnels or weapon or whatever, we need to attack immediately. We have to be very aggressive, that they will not, to create the Israeli deterrence in the Middle East again.
Is perhaps the main solution to change the regime in Iran, if the Iranians were not supporting Hezbollah, Hamas, maybe that is the way it changes? And do you think that is even a possibility?
Yeah. Most of the money and the ideology is coming from Iran, and that's why it's more clear that Iran is really the real enemy. And of course, the world, which means basically the United States, who is the leading of the free world, and Israel need to take care that Iran will never ever will have a nuclear capabilities, even if it means that we need to attack them. And yes, I think if we can change the regime in Iran, this will be a good for the world, because this crazy Islamic regime, extreme Islamic regime, is not representing the whole people of Iran. Mm-hmm. And that's why Iran is something we still need to determine. But right now, I think we are at the right point to end the war in Lebanon and to sign an agreement with the government of Lebanon. And we have a border with the government of Lebanon, not with Hezbollah. Yeah. And bring back the people on the north to their homes. And the same in Gaza. We need to find a way to end the war, to bring the hostages back home, to bring another government to Gaza, and try to, rebuild Israel, and let the Arab countries, the moderate Arab countries led by Saudi, to rebuild Gaza again. And I think the vision for this region is a team led by the US with Israel and the moderate countries, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and the Gulf, all of them in a federation against Iran.
Yeah, well, and perhaps President Trump will certainly be more forceful against Iran, and certainly with the Abraham Accords, looking to bring Israel closer to some of those countries as well. So maybe
I hope so. I really hope so.
General Noam Tibon, thank you so much for joining me today. I know that your story sends out an incredible message to everyone listening. And I suppose if you could leave us with one final thought about last year, about what happened, and about how we should look forward. Is there something that can come from this that you think can be possible?
I think in a way, when I'm looking into Israel, what we need to do when we will end the war is to start, to push the restart button on Zionism, and to go back to the values which we built Israel on. We need a new leadership. We need to replace the current leadership of Netanyahu and bring new leadership, young leadership, and to understand that, we are strong, but we have to be stronger in order to survive in this region. We need to seek for peace, but we have to be very strong. But we have to go back to our original Zionist values. This is very important for the state of Israel. And why I'm so optimistic, because I meet so many good people in the state of Israel. So many good people. And yes, the special relationship between the state of Israel and the big country of the United States of America. And I think it's about time to say thank you to all the people in America and the governor, the President Biden and President Trump. Thank you so much for supporting the state of Israel. It is so important for us. But more than the presidents, I would like to say thank you to the people in the United States, which I know that the vast majority are supporting the state of Israel. And this is very important for us.
Well, thank you again for joining me today. And all the best to you and to your family, and for the amazing things that you did on October 7th.
Thank you very much.
You're listening to Searching for Heroes with Benjamin Hall. We'll be right back. Well, thank you everyone for listening to the podcast today. I think more than anything, I'm amazed at how clear-headed, calm, resilient Noam is. He had a mission. He had to save his family. And absolutely nothing was going to stand between him and doing so. And it does raise an interesting question about, and he said it himself, some people, he says, have that ability to do it, and others don't. And I just think that it's so important to have people like that in the world. And hopefully people who listen to that, as he said, can find the same kind of strength that he found that day. Because I suppose there are two different ways of handling something when it comes to terrible crisis. One is to hide, not to deal with it, and the other is to look it straight in the eyes and deal with it. And I think Hamas and those terrorists, many of them didn't make it to that day, and many people were saved that day because Noam had that strength, because he had that ability to go and do what he needed to do. And I just hope that we can teach our children to be more like that as well. Fascinating also to hear him talk about Israel and the changes that need to be made there as well. So real pleasure speaking to him today. And I hope you enjoyed it as well. And more than anything, it was interesting to hear him remember the names, the specific names of the people who he saw who died. You don't forget that sometimes. You don't forget the people themselves. And I think that they will stay with him forever. So, he downplays what he did that day. He downplays the heroism of his actions, because how can it ever be heroic when there are people who died that day? And I think we mustn't let October 7th disappear from our memories. We must keep reminding people about what happened that day, the people who died, the brutality that happened. And of course, look to try and find a solution. Look to try and find a way to end the war in Gaza as well, so that so many communities can be rebuilt. But with people like Noam leading the way, it does give you some hope that as bad as things are, things can be rebuilt, and they have to be rebuilt. So thanks very much for joining me, everyone. And I hope you have a great day. And remember your families. That's what Noam was doing that day, whatever it took for his families. And so when you see your families today, just remember what binds you to them. Remember that you would do anything for them, and find that strength inside you, because if you can get it anywhere, it's in your families. It's for them that we must make the world a better place. It's for them that we must work hard. It's for them that we must look evil down. It's for them that we must try to build up the good. Anyway, thank you very much. Thanks for listening to Searching for Heroes. Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcasts Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.